Okay, recording has started and we can start. So we will talk about DOM API today. So what is DOM? DOM is document object model. That's a definition from Wiki. It's a cross-platform and language-independent interface that reads an XML or HTML document as a tree structure wherein each node is an object representing a part of the document. The DOM represents a document with a logical tree. Each branch of the tree ends in a node, and each node contains object. DOM methods allow programmatic access to the tree. With them, one can change the structure, style, content of a document, and so on. So let's take a look closer. So DOM, as I said, is a tree, and it consists of nodes. Let's take a look at this simple tree. The root is a document, and we have two child nodes, head and body, and child nodes of the body. It's header, main, and footer, and so on. So talking about the DOM nodes and DOM API, we will talk about 4 interfaces, 4 contracts, which we're going to interact with, and each interface is extended from another. So HTML element is extended from element, and the element itself is extended from node, and node is extended from event target. So what does it mean? That working with HTML element, we can use properties and methods which belong not only to HTML elements and to its parents as well. So we can use properties and methods for element, for node, and for event target. And here some properties and methods which belong to each interface. And let's talk a little bit closer about each interface. Let's start with event target. It has 3 methods: add event listener, remove event listener, and dispatch event. About this interface and those methods, we're going to talk on the next lecture, where we will talk about browser events. So let's move on. The node interface has some properties: first child, last child, parent element, child nodes, and so on. So I've added the link to MDN to take a look at each method and property. So we're going to take a look at some properties and methods which you will need mostly, and talk about all properties in a context. So base URL returns a DOM string representing the base URL of the document containing node, base real object, and so on. So you will need node child nodes. It returns a live node list containing all the children of the node. So the difference between a live collection and live list and the snapshot, I hope you understand. So live collection is changing as far as the DOM structure is changing. So also I've created some example project. Please write in the chat if the font size is good or I have to scale it. Too small, okay. Let me scale the console and a little bit scale the project. Okay. Does it look good now? Okay, hope it's good. So we're going to take a look at child nodes. You can see simple markup, and we can see here the header with ID header. So okay, let's get this header node and take a look at the child nodes. Header, document. Child node. Yeah, so as you can see here, we see 5 nodes, like a children of header. So why 5? As we can see here, only H1 element. Why 5? Okay, let's take a look. Why 5? We can see here comment. It has index 1, and we can see here H1. It has index 3. Before and after each node, we have also text. So the fact is that this space with spaces is also a text node between each element. So we can remove it by simple hack. We can start the next tag on this line. Like this probably. Ouch. And this way. Okay. My printer is, let's switch it off. Printer. Let's disable it. Reload required. Okay. Let's reload. Oh, it's still working. Okay, let's do it in HTML. Yeah, and now you can see we have 3 node lists. It's text after H1 heading. This is that space. Okay, so that's the difference between elements and node, because this space between tags with spaces is also a node element. And also you can see here the comment is also a node element. And that's the difference between element list and node list. So, okay, let's move next. So node first child will return us the first child. Here, first child, it's a comment. Here we can see it. Is connected. So is connected property will indicate that the node was added to DOM. Okay, you can see here a simple example. We are creating element P, then check if it is connected, it's false. And only after we appending the element into the body, it will be true. Okay, let's move next. Last child. Last child is like the first child, but will return as the last child. Next sibling is a similar. We can get the next sibling. Let's take a look how it works. So let's get the next sibling of header. It should be main. It will be text. It's the space after header and before main. And we can also go to the next sibling. And here will be main. Let's move next. The node name. Node name, it's similar like we've seen in the child lists. Header. Child nodes. Yeah, and here the node names comment, h1 heading and text. There is a question, is nest child also part of a node? Not a nest child, it's for CSS. It's not a part of node interface. To get the proper sibling, you can change child nodes property for the element. Okay, let's move next. Node type. That's a table for all possible node types. The node types is a getter. You will get the value, the number of the node type, and using this table you can check the node type this number actually is. Okay, node value. It's a getter and a setter for the value of the current node. Let's check how it works. Let's take our header, node value. It's now. Like for the document. So let's move next. On the document parent node, you will need it, and also the parent element. Let's check our header. Header parent node. It's a body. Let's check parent element. It's also will be body. Previous sibling. It's like the next sibling. If for the node there is no previous sibling or next sibling, it will return null. Text content of an element. Let's check our header text content. Text content. Yeah, it's DOM API examples. Okay. Okay, so let's move on to the methods. So append child. Append child, like we saw in the connected property, it will let us to append the child to any node. Clone node creates a clone. Returns a Boolean value indicating where or not the node is a descendant of the colon node. As child nodes, maybe you will need it. Insert before. Okay, let's see how does append child work. Let's create some element. Create element. Yeah. Let's add this element to our header. Header. Child. And here we see our element which we created and appended to the header. Okay. Also, you will need the remove child method or replace child. Okay. Here we talked about most used probably methods and properties. And now let's move on to an element and its interface. Okay. We can get attributes. Let's check. Attributes. We have attribute ID of the header and class. We have two attributes and yeah, here we can get an attribute list. So pay the attention, taking a look at every property and method we are working with header. Header, we got header as document get element by ID. It will return us an element and it will return us an HTML element. And for the HTML element, we can use properties and methods from element, from node, and from event target. So as I talked about, an inheritance of each interface from another. Okay. Also, what you will need is a class list. Let's get the class list of a header. Class list. We have the class header. And with the class list, you can operate with it. You can add class. Let's do this. Yeah, we have just added the class. Let's remove the class. And it class. Yeah, we have just removed it. So you will need to operate with the class list to change the visual state of each component. You can change the style directly. For example, make this component red, for example, so on, or hide it. You can operate with style, but that's not a good idea because we're working with classes, CSS classes. So it's preferred to create a different CSS classes with some states, for example, hidden, and operating with the class list of an element. You can, from your JavaScript code, change the visibility of the document, hide it, or so on. Or change it, color, background, borders, and so on. Okay, the class name. Element class name, it's like a class list, but it will return the value of class attribute. Let's add the class. and check the class name again. Yeah, here you can see the string like we have as a value of the class element. That was a class name. Client height will return us a number representing the inner height of an element. Let's take a look. Client height 79 pixels. Yeah. Client left, client top, client width are similar. Element ID will return us an ID. Inner HTML is a setter or getter. So working with inner HTML, you can get the HTML header. Let's take a look. Header, inner HTML. Yeah, we got it. And we can set it like we need, like let's pass a string here. Let it be changed heading. Look, yeah, here we are. We have changed the inner HTML of a header. So talking about the inner HTML, there is one security vulnerability. Getting the string from the client and adding it using inner HTML. You may set here a script tag with some content, and this script will start working and may harm your application. But in modern browsers, there is a protection from using the script in inner HTML, but you have to be careful with this property. So much better to use create element, append child, and or insert before or insert after methods to add elements to a DOM. Okay, so let's move on. I'm going to talk about the properties you may need. Scroll height, scroll left, scroll top. Yes, scrolling returns the number representing the scroll view height of an element. Scroll top, number of pixels. The top of the document is scrolled vertically. So if we are scrolling our document, we can check how many pixels we scroll. It's a scroll top. Okay. Element tag name, maybe you will need it to, for example, to walk through nodes for searching the element you need. Tag name. All the tag names will be uppercased, so just remember about it. Okay. Methods. Add event listener, it belongs to event target interface. We're going to talk about it on the next lecture. Closest. Maybe you will need it, maybe not. Get elements by class name. Yeah, you will be near. We are going to talk about DOM queries a little bit later today. Get elements by class name, by tag name, namespace. It's all for elements querying has attribute. You can check it. Okay, let's take a look how his attribute works. Let's check if header has attribute ID. Yes, it has. Let's check if it has data attribute. It's false, of course. Okay. Query selector, oh, it's also DOM queries. Child node remove attribute. You can remove your attributes from the node and scroll to. Let's take a look to scroll to. Maybe you will need it. Scroll to takes two parameters, x coordinate and y coordinate. Okay. Toggle attribute. You can set attribute if element has no attribute, and you can remove if it has. So these methods will replace check for attribute and adding it. So writing one method is much better to read and write your code. Okay, I hope that's all about element. Let's move on to an HTML element. What we have here. Okay, content editable. So in your HTML code, you can add, you can get an attribute like content editable, and it will let the user to edit the element, and using this property, you can set it to true or get the value of content editable. Is content editable? We will return a boolean. Okay. What will you need? Inner text. Yeah, you can use inner text to add to change the text inside the element. It is it has no any probable security issues despite of inner HTML. Okay, let's now change the content of this heading. We know the header. We can get its child nodes. Child nodes. Okay. And 5 child nodes. We need the heading. So the child nodes, it's not an array, it's a node list, but we can use an array methods with it by using call or apply. Okay, let's find a heading. Header, child nodes. Call. Can use find. Call it with header child nodes. Node dot node name probably. Let's use element name. name, what, where the tag name? Tag name will be h1. Heading, yeah, we got it. And now we're going to change an inner text. Heading, inner text, like changed inner text. And here we are. We have changed the text. That was inner text. Okay, let's move on. What's the difference between text content and inner text? I think the only difference is inner text is a part of HTML interface and text content is a part of element probably interface. Let's check it. It's part of node interface. Language. Yeah, here's the explanation of the difference. Text content gets the content of all elements, including scripts and style elements. In contrast, inner text only shows human readable elements. And that's the difference. Okay. What will you need? You will need an offset heights, offset widths of an element relative to the layout. Let's check it. Header. Okay, heading. Offset height. It's 36 pixels. Yeah. Yeah, that's the style. Here you can get all the styles. Also, you can do it by using heading, get. Okay. Okay. And also you can set styles. Like pass here an object. Let me check. Like this. Let's try it. Yeah, here we change the style, but take a look. Changing the style will add the attribute style with the value we passed here. And the style element has in style selectors priority, it has the most, probably the most valuable position, and it is much better to operate the styles of the elements with class and so on. And that's why we don't use it. We are not changing the style attribute. So we are working with the class lists. And in class list, we can add some class for an element with this color blue or so on. Okay. Let's move to methods. It can dispatch some events, for example, click or focus. You may need this for writing unit tests, for example. Okay, where we can find the methods. Methods, click for spell check. And here you may also find the list of events. We're going to talk about the elements events on the next lecture. And that's why now we're going to skip it. Okay, so probably that's it about DOM interfaces. Also, there are a lot of additional interfaces extending from an HTML element. For example, HTML media element. Let me check it. HTML media. Yeah, that's it. It extends from an HTML element, has its own properties for audio and video elements like autoplay, buffered controls, and so on. And from HTML media element extends HTML audio element. Yeah, that's it. So there are a lot of additional interfaces. Now we're not going to stop on them, but if it's interesting, you can take a look at them a little bit later. Okay, let's talk about elements query. So there are 5 different ways to get elements from the node tree. They are get element by ID, by class name, by tag name. All of these 3 methods will return us a live collection, and query selector and query selector all will return us a static collection. Okay, let's check. So as we already checked the header, the get element by ID, let's do it like with these sections. All 2 elements have can now have the same ID. That's my mistake. Okay, let's get this section. Get element by ID section. Yes, here is the section element. Get element by ID will return us a single element because there can be only one element with the unique ID. Also, when you are creating an ID for an element, it will automatically create a global variable with this name. Let's check section 1 without getting element by ID. Section 1. And here we see this element. Let's check it, for example, with the main. Let's add here an ID. ID global variable. Global variable. Let's check it here. Global variable. And here is our main. But using global variables, it's evil. That's why we're not using them, but we should know about them. Okay. So let's get elements by class name. Let's get the group of these sections. Const sections document get elements by class name. Because it has class section, they both have. Oh no, sections. Yeah. And now we're getting an HTML collection of 2 elements, 2 sections. Okay, let's get elements by class name. Get elements by tag name. Let's check how it works. Let's get all OP tags. Okay. Const paragraphs. And get elements by tag name. P. Okay. And yeah, here we have in the document 6 P elements. Here they are. All 6. And that was get element by tag name. And query selector and query selector all. Okay, so query selector will return the first element it finds. Okay, and it works similar like CSS. Okay, let's get the element with class section. Document, query selector, dot section, because it has class section. And here is the first one element with ID section. That's how it works, query selector. Let's check query selector role. Get query selector role. Query selector O dot section. And here we have the node list of 2 sections. Okay. And also we can call these methods not only on document, also on each element. For example, we have a heading, a header. Okay, we have a header. We can inside header find all elements with class heading. Yeah, here we have the node list containing one H1 element inside the header. So let me tell you that documents query is a very expensive operation. So that's why we can use it and optimize it. For example, searching an element inside node instead of all document will reduce the operation performance and so on. So just remember that that's an expensive operation because all the DOM is a tree, and working on a tree is expensive for elements query. Okay, so let's take a look at the difference. Yeah, here are examples like get element by ID works. Yeah, it will get the sum diff with some ID. Get elements by class name. Get elements by tag name. And query selector. You can use CSS selectors for querying, like div with class and class, and so on. And here we're getting a node list. Okay, now about the difference. The node list versus HTML collection. The node list, we are getting the node list from from query selector all. It will return us the node list. Get element by class name, by tag name, will return us an HTML collection. So an HTML collection is a live collection. We will check the example a little bit later on the next slide, I hope. And the node list is a snapshot collection. And the node list has the method for each. Okay, here is the example of HTML collection. We are getting elements by class name, some class, and now we are working with this collection. There are three different ways how to use array methods with the HTML collection, because HTML collection is not an array. The first one, we can use array from, and then use any array method. The second is array prototype map call elements, and use here pass here the callback for map, and use an ES6 syntax, creating an array, and then use array methods. And here how we can work with node list. Three ways similar to HTML collection: array from, array prototype call, and ES6 syntax, and one more for each method for the node list. It has it in its prototype. So now the difference between live collection and snapshot collection. We're getting the node list, document query selector all, some class, and we're getting HTML collection, get elements by class name, some class. Log both, node list from 2 elements, HTML collection from 2 elements. Then we are removing one some class element. And the node list will still show us 2 elements in it, and an HTML collection will show us already 1 element. To refresh the node list, we can again do query selector all query. So are there any questions about the difference between live collection and HTML collection? Okay, no questions. Maybe any questions about the lecture? How do we get this CSS to work with? Okay, so if I understand your question correctly, you mean how we can change the CSS of an elements. Okay, so as I said, you can prepare some CSS classes. Let me do that. Okay, for example, we are going to change the background of, okay, we're going to change the color of this heading. Yeah. Now it's white. We're going to make it black. Okay, let's do it. We are going to create a CSS class. Heading color. Okay. And now we're going to apply this CSS class to an element. Okay, let's do it. Header. Let's do it like heading, document, query, selector, H1. And now we have heading, heading. Okay, after adding a CSS class, let me to refresh the page. Yeah. One more time, const heading, document, query selector, H1. Heading, class list, add, yeah, but without that. And we're going to add this CSS class, and here it is. The element has a class header with the black, the element HTML, yes, here it is, has a CSS class heading color, and it is black. Also, we can work with style, but we're not going to do it. As I already told, it's most preferable to work with CSS classes. Okay, and we can repeat an operation. And now let's remove the CSS class. Heading, class list, remove, heading color. And it's white again. What is the difference between DOM and virtual DOM? So the virtual DOM is a React instance. So the React under the hood creates a virtual DOM and apply the changes in a virtual DOM to the real DOM. And I think you will know it a little bit later when you are going to study the React framework and so on. So I can tell you some words about the shadow DOM. If you will add some elements, like, let me try it. Okay, let's do it in JavaScript. Let's take this section element. Section. I'm going to add an input in section and show you like shadow DOM works. Here's selector section. Oh my God. Yeah. Okay, let's create an input. Document, create element input. Now section append child input. Yeah, we have we're getting section element by query selector, then create an input element using create element, and then we are appending an input to section. And here is the input. So its border or its behavior, all of this is declared in shadow DOM. So we can add the same for example, for other HTML elements like checkboxes, selects, and so on. So if it's interesting, you can read more about Shadow DOM. And yeah. So guys, any more questions? Yeah, that was a boring enough lecture because it had a lot of theory about interfaces, contracts, and so on. So it's a little bit boring, I understand, but the next lecture is going to be interesting and interactive. We're going to talk about browser events and their handling, and about events capture and bubbling and so on. So I will wait. Yeah, thanks. Thanks, guys. I will wait for some seconds. If someone is typing a question right now, I'm going to wait. Okay. If there are no questions, guys, thanks for attending. Have a nice day. See you on Thursday. Yeah, thank you, guys.